The next Ani moment that we have is from Arthur Butch Blazer, who I met about 20 years ago in 1995 during a tribal summit where the intertribal organization, natural resource organizations got together and started working on ideas of how we can promote our natural resource. And education is one of them, and Butch is a big proponent of that. But Butch is currently the USDA Deputy Undersecretary for Natural Resources and Environment, which is part of the Department of Agriculture, which has 26 or 29 different agencies. And Butch provides leadership for the Natural Resource Conservation Service and the Forest Service, which is an amazing accomplishment to see one of our Muscalero tribal member past council member with the Muscalero Apache tribe, state forester, as Jim Peterson mentioned. So we're deeply honored to have and appreciate that Butch has been able to make it here and provide some insight and some Ani moments. So would you please join me in welcoming Butch Blazer.
Good morning. Before I get started with my formal comments here this morning, I just want to apologize early on for the fact that I'm not going to be able to spend the time that I had hoped while I was here at your meeting. Unbeknownst to me, I had an invitation from my Assistant Secretary for Departmental Management within the Department, USDA Department of Agriculture, to meet him tonight and attend some meetings with him at the Interagency Fire Center there in Boise, and then on Thursday accompany him up to the Salish Kootenai Reservation, meeting with the Tribal Council and the Tribal College there. So, it's not my usual mode of operation to fly in and fly out, but unfortunately this time it looks like that's what's going to happen. But I want to say, in light of that, as many of your tribal delegations have been doing, when they're in town, please let them know that I'd like for them, if they have the time, to come in, set up some time, and let's have some discussion, because they're back there trying to figure out how to support the work that you're doing. And I'd like to be a part of that discussion if they so wish. So, again, it's an honor to be here with all today. I think the last meeting that I attended of the Intertribal on our council there at Mescalero back in the late 90s, early 2000, when it was up in Lewiston, Idaho. And at that meeting, we had a large contingent of tribal leaders from my tribe attend that meeting, and I was pleased to see that again here at this meeting here in Oregon. It's important. That tribal understanding, that tribal leadership piece is extremely important, and so I'm glad to see the tribal leaders and tribal representatives that are here today at this meeting. Again, I've been looking forward to this presentation on this panel this morning, especially when I found out who I would be participating with. I knew seeing Jim's name on there was going to be good. Jim has a way of making people that are in forest management accountable, and his comments are well taken. And again, I want to thank the Intertribal Timber Council for the opportunity to speak with you on this panel and share my political perspective regarding forest management within USDA, and to share some of the exciting, important work that I feel that we are doing within the department. And I always say this, I want folks to know that The Department of Agriculture is also known as the People's Department. And I think that's important because it truly is a federal department that is supposed to be representative of the people. And I and many others try to work hard to make that happen. And we're doing a lot, and I'll get into more of that here in a minute, in building that relationship and strengthening that relationship between our tribes and our Alaskan villages. The department is a large organization that covers a multitude of programmatic areas that serve this country, with well over 100,000 employees. 30 offices. And it's been mentioned several times here, starting off, that I am the Deputy Undersecretary with that oversight over the U.S. Forest Service. And I take that job very seriously and work hard at it. While the U.S. Forest Service is the largest agency in the department, with nearly 40,000 employees at the height of the summer field season, there are 6 other important mission areas within the department that I regularly work with: rural development, food safety, marketing and regulatory programs, farm and foreign agricultural services, food nutrition and consumer services, and research development and economics. I mention these other mission areas to gain emphasis on how large and complex the department is in providing many important services to America. The executive team at USDA, led by Secretary Vilsack, is committed to serving Indian country and has made great strides in the betterment of communication, improving consultation, and addressing topics of importance, all the while striving to meet the United States government's trust responsibility to tribes. The political perspective as it relates to land management, and specifically forest management in my role, is as challenging as it is exciting, with many areas to engage in identifying ways to improve the large landscapes across the country, all the while seeking to increase the numbers of jobs and revenues for communities, as well as managing risks commensurate with a changing climate. As I begin to talk about that political perspective, I would like for you to think about 3 topic areas that are core to the success of both tribal and non-tribal land management across the country. 1, youth development and increasing our professional capacity is integral to the path forward to improve landscapes. Don mentioned that I've been a proponent of tribal youth development, tribal youth conservation my whole career, and that's exactly right. There's nothing more important for me. Number 2, building trust and strong partnerships with our neighbors, collaborators, and colleagues is imperative to streamline and efficient activities. During the time I spent as a state forester in New Mexico, working with all the entities on forest management and working with the 22 tribes there in my state, that really came to light. And that period of time working with former Governor Richardson really allowed me to gain a much better perspective and understanding of how to do that, and I've carried that on into Washington, D.C., into this position. And then finally, number 3, communicating our story, talking about the accomplishments that are happening across Indian country and how the agency is working in support of Indian people and communities. Whether we are talking about forest management, improving relationships with tribes, local, state, and federal agencies, or overall program management, these 3 points are continually present. So let's talk about the current political climate. I have been in Washington, D.C. now for nearly 4 years, and let me just say it's been a continual, exciting, and definitely a learning experience for me. I have grown so much professionally during the period of time that I've spent back there. With 566 federally recognized tribes, 535 members of Congress, administration officials, and countless organizations and focus groups, the complexity of most situations can reach stratospheric levels very, very quickly. Starting with this administration, there has been continual improvement in the relationship between the United States government and tribes. I've witnessed that. Yearly tribal leader meetings with the president, settlements of large, lengthy lawsuits such as Cobell and Keepseagle cases are just a few examples of lasting changes that are reinvigorating the relationships of tribes and U.S. government. We are seeing more Native professionals entering senior level positions outside of the traditional Bureau of Indian Affairs positions, which I was part of for 27 years. These folks are taking on leadership roles that are helping connect tribes to non-traditional partners and communities, building the trust needed to move programs forward. For example, we have here with us today from the U.S. Forest Service, Brian Rice. Brian, where are you? I know you better be here. Who is the Director of Forest Management for the agency, one of the top forest management positions in the world. And Brian, being Native, I really appreciate him stepping up and moving into that type of role. Brian is working hard with many of you in the implementation of important forest management programs across the country. Another senior agency official, I don't believe has arrived yet, but will be coming in, is Deputy Chief for State and Private Forestry, Jim Hubbard. For those of you who have not met Jim, I encourage you to do so and get to know him. Jim has been a real key player and important partner in working with Indian country for many, many years. I first met Jim several years back when he was a state forester in Colorado, and that's when I was in my state forestry position in New Mexico. And then another individual that I want to mention, I understand he may be showing up here, Dave Cleaves. Dave recently retired from the agency, but during the time that I've gotten to know Dave and work with him, primarily on addressing climate change issues, Dave has been instrumental, because of his knowledge of working with the FMAT team, of really helping to bring forth the importance of how the agency can work with the tribes and with our Alaskan villages in addressing climate change, how to utilize the resources of this very large agency in working with tribes. And I so appreciate the effort that Dave has made while he was in his position there in Washington, D.C. So, Jim, Jim Peterson, I think that your comments in regards to the agency, how can it adapt, improve itself in addressing the things that need to be addressed, I truly believe that they're making a move in that direction and bringing in folks like this. And, I hope to see that continue and improve upon that diversification within its workforce. There's also plenty of activity currently moving forward in the 114th United States Congress as well, and I'll touch more on that here in a moment. I would like to say that the Intertribal Timber Council has been a great partner in working with the Department of Agriculture as well as with the U.S. Forest Service. While I've been in my position working with folks like Phil and Gary and Jim Erickson and others, we try to meet on a monthly basis and discuss the priorities of our timbered tribes. And I have to tell all of you, this group represents you very, very well, and that's how you develop and create positive change. You stay right in the face of people that are working on policy, and I've just been so glad that I've given them that opportunity, and they've taken very strong advantage of that opportunity in working with my office, and I very much appreciate that. With the focus of the Intertribal Timber Council and this symposium on active land management, I would like to talk a little about the current political situation as it relates to restoration of our national forests and associated outcomes. Across the 193 million acres of national forests and grasslands, the United States Forest Service sustains a timber output of 2.9 billion board feet. This supply sustains thousands of jobs and provides revenues to multiple sectors, including payments to counties, all the while ensuring the longevity of the natural resource. Under this current Congress, there is an incredible focus on the management of national forests and great effort being put forward into finding solutions that will improve production, increase jobs, and sustain revenues from management of our natural resources. Over the past several years, there have been a handful of bills introduced into Congress that essentially seek to streamline processes and address barriers which potentially could hinder activities across the landscape. This heightened activity is significant as it shows a heightened awareness from our congressional leaders of the challenges that we face in the field. There have been several hearings with both the Senate and House committees where the Chief of the Forest Service, Tom Tidwell, and Undersecretary of Natural Resources and Environment, Robert Bonney, who's my boss, have testified to the ever-increasing work that is occurring across the agency, despite relative lower budget line item and reduced staffing levels. This scenario has steered focus into finding more efficient ways of doing business, looking at other ways to train and develop professionals, and looking to partners, industry, states, and tribes to find solutions. Staff work is being directed to look at stewardship contracting, implementing authorities granted in the current Farm Bill, including the Good Neighbor Authority and designation by prescription. And I'm hoping, but I don't think that I'm going to be able to be here for Russ Vaughan's presentation. I know that Russ has shared with me the A to Z concept that he will be talking about, and I too find it very exciting. But it's that kind of innovation that we're starting to see come out of this next generation of forest managers across the country. And I tell you, it's needed. We really do need that innovative thinking to get us into the position that we need to be in. While we support these efforts, capacity constraints due to the present approach to budgeting for wildfire continues to be the most significant impediment in improving the health and resilience of our nation's forests. Today, the agency spends nearly half of its budget in fire management activities and has seen a corresponding decline in non-fire staffing of 39% since 1998. The most important action Congress can take now in advancing the pace and scale of forest restoration is to fix the fire funding problem. The Bipartisan Wildfire Disaster Funding Act, mirrored by a proposal in the President's FY 2016 budget, would immediately increase the agency's capacity to plan and execute restoration projects, including increasing timber volumes sold from 2.9 billion board feet that I mentioned a minute ago to 3.2 billion board feet. With all that is happening, there are opportunities appearing rapidly. Tribes in the National Forest share nearly 2,600 miles of common boundaries. It goes without saying that what happens on one side of the boundary line can affect the other. You have heard others speak of TFPA today, the Tribal Forest Protection Act, and I would like to highlight the opportunity that exists in working with the Forest Service, the district rangers, forest supervisors, and regional foresters. All of us have to get involved in making sure that that act is fully appreciated, understood, and utilized. TFPA implementation started off less quickly than most expected, but over the last year, there has been some solid work put forward to develop the relationships and trust needed to engage this opportunity. And I look forward to seeing some upcoming successes from that effort. The IFMAT 3 report, again, being highly discussed here and will be the rest of the week, I'm sure. The IFMAT 3 report that has been talked extensively here during this symposium provides recommendations for multiple federal agencies. These concepts and recommendations have also been communicated with respective congressional and administration leaders and provide an opportunity to connect tribes with the larger land management community. There are many lessons to be learned from the incredible work happening across tribal lands today. With a large national focus on reducing risk from damage from catastrophic wildland fire, there is again heightened focus on communities, jobs, livelihoods, and long-term natural resource management. Numerous contracting, partnership, and other authorities exist that can be utilized to promote forest restoration activities affecting both national forests and tribal homelands. Unfortunately, because of time constraints today, I will not be able to discuss with you the agency's emerging efforts in working with tribes and our Alaskan villages in addressing climate impacts on federal tribal forest resources. But, just be aware, there's a lot starting to happen. There's been some dedicated staff moves within the agencies that will allow it greater efficiency in working with tribes, and maybe that's something you can consider putting on your agenda for your next meeting. But I'm pretty excited about it. Yeah. The vision for the future is bright, and we're making good progress along a successful path. To shift focus a little, I think it is important to talk about a few other activities that would provide our youth and young professionals some promise. Very similar to the BIA Forestry Co-op program, which I understand now is being managed through the Salish Kootenai College, and that's where I'll be on Thursday. The Forest Service is providing opportunities to young Native natural resource students at many colleges and universities across the country. And that's hopefully on Thursday I'm going to be having some of that discussion, because what I'd like to help Salish Kootenai College and other colleges, how can we perpetuate that? How can we make more of that happen? The agency has also embarked on an ambitious path through an annual Society of American Foresters hiring event. Last year, the agency hired 26 new GS 579 foresters on the spot. And for the federal government to do anything on the spot, that takes a lot of innovation. But it happened, and it was explained to me how it happened. People continue to explain to me how they want to have more of this happen, and that's the direction that we're working. So what can often take months in process for hiring an individual was completed in a week, from application to interview to job offer. And again, we got it figured out once. We can figure out how to do it much more often. The forest management staff who organized and facilitated this activity were recognized by the department, as well as the Office of Personnel Management, for the speed, thoroughness, and efficiency of this event. My point here is that this is an incredible opportunity for our young Native professionals who bring a unique and diverse skill set forward. The person that can help me perpetuate this is the assistant secretary that I'm going to have dinner with tonight. So now you see why I have to leave a little early. He's in a position that can really work with me, work with the agency to figure out how to get more and more of our young professional foresters on board. The U.S. Forest Service is spending the time needed to understand not only how the mechanics of operating the world's largest forest management agency can be improved, but how improving the human element of the organization will ultimately better the landscape and natural resource management across Indian country. You know, when Secretary Vilsack offered me the opportunity to come to work for him and the Department of Agriculture, one of the reasons I accepted the position was in the discussion that I had with him early on. He talked a great deal of the importance of diversity and of inclusion and helping change that within the workforce within USDA. And as I mentioned to you earlier, with a workforce of over 100,000 employees, to affect that kind of positive change can really make a difference. And he's stuck to his guns, and he's done some very, very good work. And it started, and there's some good work happening within the agency that I want to continue to be a part of and be supportive of. In closing, while the political landscape affecting tribes and forestry can ebb and flow, today there is a strong synergy and focus among many different stakeholders, with a common thread of improving the landscape and the state of our nation's forests, including our tribal forests. Remember, I mentioned earlier when I began my talk, I asked you to keep three things in mind: youth development and increased professional capacity, building trust and partnerships, and three, conveying. I'm optimistic of what lies ahead for our young professionals. We have several hundred years in this country of experiences to learn from as Indian people, and more importantly, thousands of years of experience to incorporate through Native culture and traditional teachings. This powerful combination provides a very strong opportunity for those who will be entering a much larger, highly competitive playing field. The plans and programs that we begin and implement today should incorporate how the next generation will be able to continue and sustain these activities. Through better communication, more open dialogue, and support of diversity program areas, build better trust and strengthen successful outcomes. Lastly, the better we can tell the story of outcomes and success in Indian country, the more successful we will become overall. The IFMAT report, most recent TFPA workshops, developing tribal anchor forest efforts, and other tribal involvement in regional landscape level restoration projects are just several examples of showcasing how Indian country plays a vital role in the management of our nation's forestry resources. Thank you very much.